Well, hey everybody, so nice to see you. So, welcome to IGTV Live here for Anna Kooiman and Strong Sexy Mamas. I am the creator of Strong Sexy Mamas, and this morning I have the honor to talk with Brittany Citron from Pronatal Fitness. She's the creator of one of the fitness certifications that I have, the performance training for pre and postnatal. And we want to talk to you today about the reasons that we want to do fitness training for the real life physical demands of motherhood. So the reason that we're picking up these weights all the time is because we actually want to have an easier life in the 23 and a half hours of the day where you aren't working out with me or you aren't working out with Brittany. So welcome to you, Brittany. How are you? Good
Thank
morning. Good
you, Anna.
afternoon.
I'm seeing this lovely, like, nice warm background behind you. I'm here, and I think it might be 4 degrees today and 3 feet of snow. I'm actually visiting my parents in Michigan, so it's freezing cold here. So it looks lovely there. But thank you for having me on. I'm excited to. This is a topic I'm very, very passionate about, and we're ready to get started here.
And talk a little bit more about why you wanted to start Pronatal Fitness and some of the things that you
Yeah.
noticed with some of your girlfriends who hadn't done as much research as you had when you were pregnant with your little ones.
Well, like many who specialize in this niche, and yourself included, I came into this because of my own experience becoming a mom. My oldest, I have two kids. They're 4 and 8. So during my first pregnancy in 2012, and you come into this space and you realize the lack of evidence-based information. And myself, growing up, I was a dancer, I had a heavy fitness background. I was working in the corporate world, but really kind of struggled to figure out what was the right thing to do during this time. And my business partner, Carolyn Appel, our director of education, who you know from taking our course, she had a similar story in that she was specializing in this field. She had, an extensive exercise science background, multiple degrees, but even she, when she kind of came into this experience too, witnessed that same lack of evidence-based information. It can be frustrating even for people that have this type of background. If we're struggling, imagine everyone else that's not spending as much time researching and everything. So that was really the impetus for starting Pronatal. And our approach, as you saw in our course, it's very different than the conventional wisdom, which is always told
Yes.
women during pregnancy. You want to take it easy, you want to modify. What do we need to avoid? What do we need to modify in order to mitigate the risk of pain or injury? And ironically, this is the guidance that's leading to a lot of the pains and injuries because our bodies aren't prepared to cope with the stresses. So
Yes.
that's why we have this performance training approach. And that simply means viewing this journey from pregnancy through childbirth and the postpartum experience like the athletic event it is, and focusing on training our bodies for those specific stresses. So, just like the way you would train for a marathon looks very different than the way you would train for a golf tournament or a tennis match, the same is true for this journey. As you know, it
Right.
places very specific, very high stress demands on your body. And we want to make sure you're prepared for those stresses so that you can manage them. And this just doesn't have to be a period that you're enduring in pain, but it's actually a time where you can thrive and enjoy the experience because you know
Yes.
how
Well, we want to
quickly
thrive. We do.
time.
We want to thrive not just in pregnancy, but in parenthood. And so
Yeah.
there are so many reasons why we want to train during pregnancy to get ready for that marathon of labor and delivery and
Yeah.
also motherhood. I like the parallels that you draw so often with Pronatal Fitness. And one of the best things, and everybody at home while you're watching, give us some hearts, give us some love. If you've got any questions for me or for Brittany, please give us some love here because we want this to be an interactive
Yeah.
experience for you
Yeah.
as well. Brittany, the thing that I always tell new clients of mine, whether that's in person or in Strong Sexy Mamas, we talk a lot about having enough water. I say the two things that I can encourage women to do the most of
Yeah.
is just drink more water and get yourself in
Right.
neutral alignment. And both of those things, there it is. Both of those things sound so basic,
Yeah.
but we talk about having the bony landmarks, right, that we all
Yeah.
need to have in
Yeah.
order because during pregnancy, as our belly's getting bigger, a lot of us will get this anterior pelvic tilt here as the
Yeah.
belly's getting bigger, or we'll get kyphotic leaning over and then leaning over constantly over the crib
Yeah.
in the car
Yeah.
seat and all of that. And the nursing, of course, as our breasts are getting
Yeah.
bigger, the tissue is heavy and all of
Yeah.
that. The constant leaning forward, we're in this position. So we try to get a neutral alignment with all the bony landmarks, right? So we have our ear and our
Yeah.
shoulder and our hip, our knee, our
Mm.
ankle, all in a line. And
Yep.
a good way to do that, Brittany, is actually just put yourself up on a wall, isn't it, to
Yes.
get yourself in neutral alignment.
Yeah. Yep.
If you want to talk about that, and then what the reason we need to be in neutral alignment for our training and for
Yeah, yeah,
motherhood as
it's a
well.
great segue. So it's funny when you talk about, when you talk about exercise during, during pregnancy and everything. Even if you worked out an hour a day every single day, it's still one out of every 16 to 18 waking hours, or 22 if you're a new parent. And how you move throughout all the rest of your activities has a huge impact, not just on your postpartum recovery, but just on your overall quality of life and strength. So we want to move exactly as you said, Anna, in a way that minimizes stress on our body and maximizes efficiency. And the way we do that is in what's called neutral alignment. So I'm going to finish showing you exactly what you were saying, how to first kind of stand in neutral alignment, just so you can see what it feels like. And then we're going to talk about moving in neutral, specifically during all your what we call ADLs, activities of daily living, as a new parent. So let me just first show you how to, and I'll finish up exactly what you were just showing, how to find neutral alignment so you can kind of see what that feels like. So you're going to stand, and you can stand using a mirror, or if you're with your back against a wall. And what you're going to try to do is line up 5 bony landmarks: ear, shoulder, hip, knee, ankle. Right? And you kind of, I'm going to move closer as I talk. So you want a straight vertical line. And what you want to notice is, what adjustments did you have to make to achieve that? Did you have to kind of lean your head back, roll your shoulders back? Just kind of take note of that change. Now, the other really important part to neutral alignment is a neutral pelvis. So if you find these bony prominence here, your ASIS, think of them as flashlights. You want your flashlights pointing directly ahead. If they're up, you're in what's called posterior tilt. And if they're down, that's an anterior pelvic tilt, which is, just as you said, Anna, where we're often in pregnancy, which is placing a lot of stress on the lower back or the external abdominal wall, where you tend to stand like this. That's why one of the reasons low back pain is so
Yes.
common during pregnancy. And I remember as a dancer and a gymnast growing up, I naturally kind of stood like that. And I would always have this severe back pain after long periods of kind of walking around. And now that I'm more conscious of that, you start to be aware of it and correcting it. And eventually, the more you practice it, it just becomes natural. Now I don't have any more back pain. So that's just something to be aware of, is finding those 2 points, the vertical stacking and the neutral pelvis. Now, as you move throughout your day, obviously you're not moving around, standing. You want to think of keeping a straight line from your ear to your shoulder to your hip. So as you're bending over, you're still keeping this straight line here. As you're sitting in a chair, you're keeping that straight line, ear, shoulder, hip.
Yes.
So I want to, now, if we can maybe go through some of the movements,
Exactly.
we'll
So
talk about these common
so very
movements.
tangible solutions for
Yeah.
all of these things that we're doing in our life. I think I might have to move this over here a little bit. But for example, when we are getting baby out of our pack and
Yes.
play, or reaching over the baby gate, I'll move this over here a little bit more, or reaching over the baby gate, or if we've got a baby jail like I have for my Annabelle right now because she's crawling. We don't want to do this, do we?
Right. No. You want to,
And why don't
exactly.
we want to do that? That's going to put a lot of pressure on here, isn't it? So
Yeah.
instead, we want to have a nice neutral spine, right? So we don't want to be tucking under. We have butt
Yeah.
grippers too, don't we? And we don't want to be rounding here. We want to have a nice long spine and not arch too much, and pick them up like this. So what you'll do is you'll engage through the core, exhale, wrap in the abs, pick them up, and things will be a lot easier. It does take some practice, and that's why in fitness training, for pre and postnatal women, we often try to mimic these activities of daily living, doing things like a deadlift or doing things like a ground get up with a squat, because they're
Yes.
very practical, and we all know that we get in very awkward, precarious situations, especially if you have 2 kids. You got a toddler and a baby, and
Yes.
it can
Yeah.
can be a real juggle, can't it? Do you want to
Exactly.
demonstrate?
Exactly
How
what
about
you
you
did.
demonstrate the? Do you want to demonstrate the ground get up, maybe?
Yes, I'll do that, and then we'll talk about the other. So let me just show you. So a lot of times you're on the ground with your little one. You're doing, tummy time, changing diapers, whatever. you have two options. You have to get yourself and your baby off the ground. So you have two options. You can stand and pick your child up, which you kind of just talked to, but you can also get off the ground. I'm going to try to adjust this with your baby. So you're on the ground. I know you can't really see me here. But I have my little baby here, right?
There's the baby. Hello,
So
baby.
let me see if I can move this here, just so you can see a little bit. Now, there's two requirements to the ground get up. One is that you can get off the ground without using your hands because they're going to be occupied. And the second is that you maintain that neutral alignment. I guess the third requirement would be don't drop your child. So this is why it's important to practice this without a live child first, right? But you're on the ground, and then you just want it. Now, everyone's going to have a different strategy for getting up depending on how your body's built. So, Anna, you may do this completely different than I do. I kind of tuck my knees in here and then step up, right? But you might do it completely differently. The point is you want to practice being able to get up without like using your hands or hunching over. That's going to place the pressure on your lower back. You want to practice being able to get up without using your hands. How are you going to move your legs to get up and then step up? Now, if that is too difficult to practice at once, I say to start by
Yes.
being on your knees.
You know,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
want to show a similar one to
yeah,
what you just did, the ground
yeah.
get
This
up
is how
with
you do. Did
what
you
I
mind?
call mama get ups
Yeah,
that are like from a kneeling position,
yeah,
right? So I'm going to do it with a weight because
yeah,
that's how we will be doing it in class.
yeah.
We don't actually use our babies during class. We are using the weights during class. But so imagine that you are holding your little one here, right? You've been playing with them down on the ground. How are you going to get up? You're here and you
Yeah,
try to bring one foot up and then
exactly.
the other without sliding that leg around. You want to stay in neutral alignment. Again, use your abs as you come on up.
Exactly. Right. So that's a
So it's
great
almost
time to
like
start by
if
practicing.
you've done a lot of fitness, it's
Yep.
almost like doing the prisoner squats, isn't it? And not letting the shoulders round and not
Exactly.
going too far this way. Let's see if we can do another one. How about I'm going to demonstrate doing just a squat down here.
Yeah.
So say it's kind of in between, right? When they're in the bouncy seat. So they're
Yeah.
not on the ground, you're not on the ground with them, and you're not leaning over the playpen. That's more of sort of a deadlift
Yeah.
action. So in this one, you'll pick up your little one this way. You'll squat. Oh, here we go. It's hard on Instagram, isn't it? With two people in there and the screen not being exactly where you want it. So again, here we go. So we're going to come down in a squat and pick them up this way. Wrap in the abs, lift through your pelvic floor. You can even exhale on your way up and come on up. Try not to let the shoulders round
Yep.
and not be too far this way.
Yep.
So again, your little one's here, bounce around, bebop, 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 and you are going to lift through your pelvic floor, wrap in your abs, exhale, pick them up, and
Yeah. And these
bring
are
them
great
toward you.
practice during pregnancy. So these are prenatal training moves that we have because the goal is you want to be able to prepare your body so that by the time you're doing this, you're exhausted, you're recovering from labor, your body naturally knows how to move with proper mechanics. So, but at any point you can practice these, and these are great for new moms, new dads, grandparents, aunts, and uncles. So I want to go back to that one you demonstrated earlier. We call it the ground pickup, but it's anytime you're picking an object. It could be your baby, it could be a laundry basket up from the ground. And just like you demonstrated, Anna, instead of initiating the movement by reaching our arms forward, we're initiating by reaching our tailbone back. Tailbone goes back so that you can keep that straight line, bend down, keeping that neutral alignment to pick up whatever object it is. And just as you demonstrate, so that's what we call the ground pickup. And we would say in your actual workouts, call it the ground pickup so you start to create that association.
Yes.
You can pick up remember, the average 2-year-old weighs 25 to 30 pounds. So once you master the movement, then you practice lifting a heavier weight. And then we also have what's called what you did, the crib reach, where
Okay.
you're going to be hinging over.
Yeah, so we did have a viewer write in the question. They wanted to know, Brittany, if you've got a high crib with high sides and a low bottom. We've actually got one at our house as well. You can imagine that is painful on your back if you do it incorrectly. So what do you do?
So you're going to, again, use the same thing. You want to send your hips back. So we want to use our glutes here to kind of support and keep that neutral alignment as opposed to leaning over the crib like this. So we're going to send our, and practice reaching forward and coming up. So again, in your workouts, you could be holding a weight, you holding any sort of heavy object, and you kind of practice this hinging over a barrier. You practice holding the position, you can swing, but this practice of
But now if there are times.
What? Yep.
Yeah.
And
So,
then
but Brittany, if there are times where you physically can't get yourself in neutral alignment, because there will be times, unfortunately, where we actually can't, and we can't have that perfect long spine. What's your recommendation if we do have to get into that flexion in order to bend down and pick something up?
life is
what's the best way to handle it?
Life is not about it. It doesn't have to be. You can't go through life in perfect neutral alignment at all times, right? That's completely understandable. What we want to kind of is give you some awareness so that the majority of the time that you are in neutral, especially when you're lifting a heavy load. So what we want to try to avoid is like lifting the 25-pound toddler with that rounded back and doing that a lot. So this is all about trying to bring greater awareness. It's never anything like, it's never about perfection and getting to 100% of the time. Obviously, there's times we're going to be moving and turning, and that's fine.
Okay.
Another great one to practice is the bath time kneel. And this is where you put something on the ground and practice hinging on your knees over a barrier. Again, you can hold a weight for this. You can do it one-legged, but this is another way to practice that what can be a highly stressful period of bath time, right? Preparing, and again, you're using your glutes, sending them back to kind of practice that hinge.
Yes. And the hope, of course, is that all these things get on autopilot, right, Brittany? We're not thinking everybody's going to go, okay, I'm going to inhale, then I'm going to exhale, then I'm going to wrap in my abs, then I'm going to lift my pelvic floor. You know, the idea is once you start training with us for 30 minutes a day, that you end up just getting to a point in your life where anytime you're about to do that, just automatically everything starts firing. And you don't have to remind yourself, okay, wrap in the abs, lift your pelvic floor, inhale, exhale, like the whole thing. And that's one of the reasons why you would train with somebody like a Pronatal Fitness or like a Strong Sexy Mamas. And I was telling you this, actually, one thing that I've noticed in my activities of daily living, and this is not a strength exercise in the slightest, but when I'm feeding Annabelle in her little chair, you know, sometimes, let's see where I can put it. I'll get this one out of the way. If I've got a nice seat here, low, then that's fine, right?
Yeah.
But I'm bebopping around, I'm running after my toddler, like a lot of you are at home. And so I find myself doing this, I'm like, oh, why is my back hurting? Oh yeah, duh. So you just have to think about it, even when you're not physically lifting something up, just try to stay in that neutral alignment here. Again, not arching too much, not rounding too much, feeding. And you'll feel so much better. You'll get rid of that back pain, and then you won't mind next time you're at soccer practice with your little toddler running around after them, because you're not going to be, you know, having too much pain from something like that. Also wanted to give you guys a shout out, because one thing that I was not incorporating into my classes until I got my certification with you guys was the anti-lateral flexion, which to somebody who's not a fitness person, they're like, oh my gosh, they're talking this jargon that I don't understand. So I'll show you what I mean. Anytime you are carrying something like your car seat, or this is the top half of Annabelle's stroller, this can be heavy, right? Especially if you've got your little one in it. Let me try to hold this up a little bit higher. And so you're going, this is what we have a tendency to do.
Right.
Or heavy groceries like that.
Right? You might lean away.
Right? Or you get on the other side and you're, with your heavy groceries. And that's not good either. So what we try to do, and I've started incorporating this into my classes now after I got my certification with you guys, so thank you. So pretend like this is your car seat or your bassinet or whatever it is, your capsule that you've got. You can either be just walking, doing a carry like this, or I've been doing lunges, whether it's just split squat static lunges like this and fighting that anti-rotation or that anti-lateral flexion that would be take you this way. We're trying to go against that with not overcompensating.
Yeah.
You'll really feel it more on an exercise like this if you have a heavier set of dumbbells,
Yep.
or like if you had your backpack there, or if you wanted to actually carry your car seat and feel it. So then I'm trying to stay up nice and tall. I'm wrapping in the abs. I'm inhaling on the way down and exhaling on the way up, wrapping in the abs. Chest is tall. Again, not letting the shoulders round, not going too far this way and not going too far
And what
that
that
way.
is that
So it's all really practical.
that is core training. So what you're talking about there, that's what we call anti-core training. There's anti-flexion, resisting going forward, anti-extension, and then anti-lateral flexion and anti-rotation. This is a great example. And if you're carrying that one heavy weight, and it can be a backpack, you can carry it by your side. You will feel as you're just walking, carrying it one-handed. You will feel it in your obliques as you try to resist overcompensating and you try to maintain that neutral alignment. Because what we're doing with this anti-core training is you're having force try to pull you out of neutral, and you have to use your deep core muscles to stay in neutral. So that forces them to really work hard, and it's an incredibly beneficial type of core training, especially what you just demonstrated, the anti-lateral flexion, because so many times as new parents we're carrying things one-sided like that. And then the last, another great exercise to do is what we call baby lifts. So a lot of times when we work out or we're doing our classes, we do like standard overhead presses, right? Where we're taking the dumbbells and we're lifting them directly overhead. But in real life, we actually lift objects slightly in front of us.
Good point. So you're right. So very often in our fitness classes, mine included, we're doing overhead presses here, wrapping in the abs, shoulders back and down. But you're right. When we're lifting our baby, we're not lifting them straight over our head. When we're lifting them out to the side, aren't we?
So that's something to practice.
Little sided up.
A little ahead. Yep, exactly. Training the body to lift, because that's how we lift objects. If you're trying to put an object on a shelf or your little one, it's a great one to practice. And then finally, I would say another great one is, this is especially good during the later stages of pregnancy, is just the chair get off.
Yeah.
So
hopefully we're giving everybody some real actionable steps that they can do in your own life.
So you're just inhaling here. You're sitting in nice neutral alignment. Exhale to stand. Inhale back down. Exhale to stand. And you can even do this quickly and turn it into a cardio movement, right? But just practicing, because so many times during the later stages of pregnancy, we're trying to use our hands to get off the chair and everything. And you want to be able to easily maneuver up and down, and being able to do that when you're holding a little one. So, and the chair get up is also a great way to practice, preparing for a traditional squat. So it has you practice sending your hips back. And a lot of these movements, these can be fun movements, we say, to incorporate into your workouts. You can do a chair get up, stand, and go into a baby lift. So you can combine a lot of these movements too. And the goal is, again, we use this terminology so that you take it from your workouts, and then you create that association when you're actually performing those activities in daily life.
And having this neutral
comes natural.
Having this neutral alignment will make it a lot easier for our diaphragm to function properly, our pelvic floor to be working, our transverse abdominis to wrap in correctly if we just get ourselves in neutral alignment. That's another thing to think about when we're doing our Kegels, or our pelvic floor activations, as you like to call them. And make sure you can relax too. We always like to talk about that. But if you do them in a neutral alignment, that's where everything can function properly the best. We've only got a couple of minutes left. I'm actually teaching my final class in a 6-week challenge for Strong Sexy Mamas via Zoom in about 15 minutes. And I need to give Annabelle a little bit of this action beforehand. But we had two more questions that I just want to quickly get to, and I'll let you answer. So the breathing mechanics, what we talk about is breathing into that diaphragm in a neutral position and inhaling into your belly, ribs, and back, and then exhaling, wrapping in the abs and lifting through your pelvic floor. And you talk about doing the exhale on the exertion. For some women, they're like, oh my gosh, this is too much for me to think about. I already got to think about the baby. I already got to think about my toddler. I got to think about this, this, and this. It's too much. What advice do you have for them?
Well, the more you practice it, so what you're talking about is exhale on the effort. So you always want to make sure when you're doing any sort of movement, like lifting your little one, you're inhaling on the easier portion of the movement and exhaling on the exertion. That's what's going to help you give. That's what it's going to give you the power to to lift or pull in a way that protects your core. So you want to exhale on the effort. But the more I would say, the more you start to practice that, the more natural it does become. So in the beginning, you might have to remind yourself a lot. Um, but eventually, the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. And so many times, you'll catch yourself, oh, I didn't breathe right. Oh, well, at least you were aware of it. I mean, that's a huge first step. So maybe 1 out of every 10 times you're remembering to do your exhale on the effort. That's great. That's so much better than zero. And eventually, if you keep practicing, it'll become 2 times, and then three, and then it'll be on autopilot. So the thing is, don't get discouraged if you're not doing it perfectly right from the beginning. That's fine. Just try to think about it, and eventually, the more you practice it, the more natural it will become.
Yeah, well, I think both of us try to have our women or our parents taking the classes to really not just get a neutral alignment in the beginning of class, do something to get you a neutral alignment, but also practice the breathing a few times so that hopefully it will become on autopilot and it doesn't feel like it's so much that you have to think about doing all of this,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, real quick, and we actually have we had another question that came in. Thanks for the hearts, guys. Yeah, keep giving us the hearts. We love to see you and hear from you. I'll get to the pre-question that we had from one of my girls in a second, but one just came through, and while we're on the topic of core, very quickly, again, because we don't have much time, but first trimester, do you need to change your exercises for your core in the first trimester? If so, what do you need to do? What do we need to focus on?
So and you're right, we just did a whole IG live on this. We want to focus on the most beneficial core training. So we always say, as you know, Anna, proper core training is the single most important thing you can do. But a lot of the traditional core exercises we're used to, at best, maybe they won't do any harm in the first trimester, but are they really preparing your core for the stresses it's about to endure and everything?
Yeah.
No. So really what we want to focus on are the deep core muscles, those muscles of the diaphragm, the transverse abdominis, and the pelvic floor, and how do we train them? So first trimester, before first trimester, that's what we really want to be focusing on. And we just did our most recent Instagram live was all on core training, was all on starting with the breathing, right? It starts with getting those, because that's what's getting those core muscles to activate in the right way. So if you can't learn how to breathe right, that's kind of the foundation for everything. So that's really the first step to getting those core muscles activated. And then there's several exercises from there. From a issue, like, technically in first trimester, when you don't have a belly, you can continue the same core work. But again, it just might not be the most beneficial thing for you. Really, the most beneficial is to start training those deep core muscles.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like the bigger, so we've got one more question that's coming through. Or somebody's just saying, a massage therapist, I think that fit new mamas and pregnant mamas can really benefit from massage. Yeah, absolutely. And stretching too. And with the stretching, we have to look out for that relaxin hormone and not overstretch. That same hormone that has helped us to make room for baby can also leave our joints lax and things. So we do have to be careful of that. Yeah, massage. Oh my gosh, one of the best things I did for myself when I was pregnant with Annabelle for stress relief. Absolutely. And yeah, as far as the core goes, just back to that, the bigger changes obviously happen once you have developed the baby. Same thing with the high impact exercise and the heavier lifting, and really trying to like really hone in on those core mechanics. To prevent or at least reduce the risks of abdominal separation and pelvic floor weakness and prolapse and things that a lot of people don't talk about, and they are starting to talk a lot more about them. Thanks to organizations like Pronatal Fitness and Strong Sexy Mamas too. Okay, so final question we had from one of my girls was the importance of rest. So in these 6-week challenges that I've been doing, I have one day that can be used as a rest or makeup day, and one day that is just rest. Like, it's just a rest day. I want you to rest. And she said, she said, you've done such a nice job of doing, upper body and lower body and core and doing the different muscle groups on the different days. Why do I need to take a day off if I don't want to take a day off? And my response was that, you don't absolutely have to take a day off. But the work days don't have to be go as hard as you can, and the rest days don't have to be sit on your bum and don't even walk around the block.
Right.
But what I will say too, as a fitness instructor, we see all kinds and all stripes and all shapes and sizes and different fitness backgrounds. And there are women who will come and I'll see them and they're doing my class and a class after mine. They're doing back-to-back classes, or they're training 7 days a week. And they're like, why am I not seeing results? Oh my gosh, I'm working so hard. And I'm like, you know what? Just take a day or two off, and I think you will actually start to see more results. And they're like, then they come back and they're like, oh my God, how does that work? But I want to get your thoughts on rest, and for pre and postnatal women in particular, the importance of listening to our body and giving it what it craves. What are your thoughts
Yeah.
on rest? How much do we need?
I mean, you're absolutely right. You need rest, and that's why you saw the rest intervals were so critical to our training, because if you want to be able to actually work at higher intensities, your body just needs rest. So if you keep going and you're not taking that time to rest, you're not going to be able to work at the higher intensity. And so you're absolutely right. That can be the reason that you're not experiencing results. And I remember, again, after my first pregnancy and not knowing a lot of this, I went back too hard, too fast, and I actually had to stop. And then I couldn't work out, and that actually slowed me down. So your muscles and your whole body, the fatigue will set in, and eventually you're not going to see those results because your body needs rest in order to be able to work at these higher intensity levels. So you're absolutely, but you're right too, that you don't have to like sit on your butt all day one day. You can be out and walking, right? You can do different things to still stay active, but you don't need to do hardcore strength training every single day. So it's just about variety. And I just wanted
Yes.
to circle back really quick on the core question. I know there's a lot of questions on this, and so you can actually go to we have an IGTV that we did on, you can see on pre and postnatal core training. You can also see on core exercises to avoid. So there's a little video there that will show you the different exercises to avoid as you start to develop a belly. And so you can find those on our Instagram channel, just Pronatal Fitness.
Yeah.
Like, there's
Well,
always
Brittany,
questions on that.
you are just a wealth of knowledge, and it's so nice to have you be hosted on my channel and be in this free mama fitness guide that I give out as well, because there's so much bad information on the internet, um, and
Yeah.
and so many conflicting messages, and your program really helps to cut through the clutter and go, right, this is an old school way of thinking, this is the new school way of thinking. Yes, the generic rules are this, for most women, but there are always exceptions, and you can push a little harder if X, Y, and Z, and it's really nice that you're helping to empower women, but also really teaching us to listen to our bodies and respect our bodies for what they're going through, because it really is a marathon, pregnancy and labor and delivery and motherhood.
Well,
But thanks again. I really do
thank
have to
you
go,
for
otherwise
letting me
Annabelle's not going to make it through
yeah.
my next class.
Thank
But lovely to chat with you, and I hope you have a great day. Maybe we can do this again on another
you.
topic about
Thank
something
you. This
different.
is great. Yep.
Thanks.
Bye bye.
Bye.